AJ said that the roster is not far away from being a championship roster, which when you look around the West, I would not agree with that assessment. I think that it completely could get there because they've got the most important ingredients. They've got 2 top 10 players. But there has to be some pretty significant changes to be close to a championship in the Western Conference. And that's not a JJ thing, frankly.
You know, I feel like I'm a sponge when it comes to certain things, and I soak it all up. I was told early on, they want to coach not just for today, but for the future. That was what I was told.
Yes.
That's what I'm just saying. So now you get to the press conference, and you're saying something totally different. That's why I'm saying, just tell me the truth. Is it really about the future if it's about right now? Because if it was about right now, you got rid of 2 coaches in the last 4 years that took you pretty far in situations. So if they were still in place, you'd have an opportunity and a chance, I feel like. A coach with no experience that's young, and he could turn into a, look, the first time guys in general that people put on lists to go get don't always turn out to be the best bet.
Right.
Okay?
And by the way, he could be, I have no doubt.
He might be the best coach ever 4 years from now.
I have no doubt. Seriously, I can sit up here and tell you that I have 0 doubt that J.J. Redick will be a very good NBA coach. He will get there. Is he going to get there in the next couple years? Is he going to get there with the Lakers?
That's the problem. It's the Lakers. And LeBron has a clock that's a ticking. And Anthony Davis, for all it's worth, he has a clock that's a ticking too. We act like Anthony Davis is 22 years old the way we talk. Just because LeBron is playing at 40, you know, everybody assumes Anthony Davis is going to play these 40. It doesn't work like that. So it's like, okay, are we trying to get this thing done before LeBron goes off and does something else with his life and his family and his kids and everything else? If that's the case, why didn't we stay with Ham and keep it going? Why start the clock all over again?
Well, apparently your 2 top 10 players finally said enough of Darvin Ham. Pretty simple. They for whatever reason, it just wasn't going to continue.
I understand.
All right?
I understand.
Okay, so I've said this before, and I'm going to say it one last time. I still don't believe JJ would have gotten this job if not for that podcast with LeBron.
Sure.
And I could be wrong about that, but
And that's okay, though.
It meant a lot. No, it did.
Yeah.
Okay? And yet, ironically, he said yesterday that that's the end of the podcast. And I'm thinking, seriously, I thought this because it's sort of the appeal of JJ because he does speak for a living. And he and LeBron had such a good click on the podcast. I kind of hoped they would keep it up and do a weekly Inside the Lakers. And I know you'd have to tiptoe through some things, but I thought they would continue their podcast relationship.
Yeah, this is probably not the city to do that.
No.
Okay.
If he was buried in a small market, he probably could do it. Doing it in L.A. and winning 30 games, probably not going to be. It's probably not a good idea.
Okay, if that's what you're predicting.
No, I'm not predicting. I'm just saying if you don't
it could get real sticky.
It can get real sticky real quick.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, in the end, you came away, it sounds like, impressed and optimistic for him.
Yes, look, I am impressed and optimistic on day one. Opening day, every baseball team can win the pennant, right? I mean, that's sort of a little bit what we experienced yesterday over at the Lakers practice facility. But yeah, look, Rob Pelinka was saying the right things. It's good if you are a Laker fan to feel like, okay, well, at least we all agree on the direction you need to go. I thought J.J. Redick said the right things. And by the way, when I mention analytics and him talking about I'm going to use math and I'm going to embrace numbers, it's not just three-point shots. And I know it's a little bit of a dirty word, analytics, with athletes, but he talked about finding the edges, right? And that's something that is sort of a concept in sports that's gotten a lot of hold. There was a cycling team over in Europe that changed little things by half a degree here, that, are our tires the best tires? Or is this, is the way we load the bikes into the van the best way to load the bikes into the van? And by making those little edge 5%, 10% changes, all of a sudden their bike riders were winning the Tour de France. Yep. And that is an idea in modern coaching that is popular, and you need to be an analytics-based coach to get those little edges. I think Anthony Davis, to your point, is going to be a benefit of those little edges. I do not think Anthony Davis has reached his full potential. I think JJ is a great coach to try to unlock some of that. We'll have to see if he can. But that, to me, is actually probably the best fit of all of the fits.
Well, I guess because I'm a Laker fan, it's certain things as a former athlete, certain things are scary to me, whether you've been in a locker room as a player or not. When you have to make adjustments on the fly, what I'm envisioning, how is he going to outsmart Mikey Malone up in Denver? How is he going to outsmart our guy in Spo down in Miami? Does he know to call a timeout right now? Those are the sort of things that scare me. Like, when do you make the adjustments? What's your rotation gonna look like? Because Darvin Ham got criticized at times about the rotation a year ago. So all of those sort of things, it's like, okay, when is that gonna happen? Where's your assistant that's gonna help you? Well, who's your assistant? I don't have that information.
No.
So everything is still kind of like, I don't know yet. I just don't know. And because in this day and age, as much as I love LeBron and we love LeBron, Skip, you like him as a person, not so much as a Jordan basketball comp, but
True.
Players in the NBA, and you know this, Rachel, this isn't LeBron 10 years ago when guys were walking in the league going, wow, this is LeBron James.
Yeah.
They don't give a damn now. So when...
I think they give a damn.
No, hold on, Skip. I'm talking about what he says on the team because they feel like when you don't have a guy like Brooks on the team that can care less. What's going to happen when you have a Robert Horry on your type team that don't care about what you're talking about as a coach, like Danny Ainge figured out? How would JJ respond to that? Many people will say, oh, he can handle it. I had Paul Pierce over here talking about yesterday when he was with him for 2 years at the Clippers. He didn't seem as a leader, as a coach, in how to respond to certain players. That part, to me, makes me go, oh, okay. Because I know as a head coach, you can have challenging situations that come up.
Okay.
How you going to handle that?
All right. I'm with you, and I have voiced this several times, and I'll do it again one more time before we give him his lead into this and just let it go and see what happens. But he's not coming from the mold that a lot of these first-time head coaches came from because he was not the point guard. He was not a locker room leader. I've talked to several people. I told you yesterday, and I told Paul, I'm talking to people even back to the Philadelphia days, quiet in the locker room, stayed to himself in the locker room, not what you'd call a natural-born locker room speaker or leader. So when I look at Larry Bird or Doc Rivers, I say, oh, well, but they led their basketball teams and they just stepped right in as a head coach without head coaching experience, but they had leadership experience in both cases. And Larry was kind of the point forward of that team, and Doc was the point guard of the teams he was on, okay? So he doesn't have the natural background that would lend itself to say, okay, now you'll just continue on doing what you did. You led basketball teams, now you'll coach lead basketball teams.
Steve Kerr was a voice in the locker room in Chicago.
I was there, and well, you were around, but listen, every time we needed a quote, the spokesman for the team when Michael didn't feel like speaking to the media, which was occasionally and maybe even more than occasionally, you go to Steve Kerr because he was the voice of reason. He saw all and he knew all and he could put it in perspective. And it didn't surprise me a bit after, well, Mark Jackson, the ultimate point guard leader. So he had instilled all the right qualities in those young Golden State Warriors. He had taught them how to win at this level, and Steve inherited the perfect team at the perfect time, and the rest is history, right?
I mean, you go down the list of first-time head coaches, and I was just looking at my list. Pretty much everybody's on here that were point guards except like Quinn Buckner and
Well, Quinn was.
Was he a point?
He was, yeah. He ran the show. No,
yeah, but everybody on here is points then.
Yeah, okay.
Literally.
They just are. They just are, okay? JJ, and we're kind of shattering the mold. But does anybody disagree about his IQ? No, he's got high basketball IQ. And he's extremely, glib, and he's impressed LeBron on the deepest X and O level in the podcast. He really gets it and can talk it and communicate it, which is not always the case with star basketball players. Sometimes you take the Michael Jordans at the high, or Magic lasted 16 games coaching the Lakers. He's almost like too great to be a coach, right?
But don't you think JJ is going to do well at the one-on-one conversations that will ultimately, to me, turn this team? I'm not sure if standing up in front of everyone, and no one's Doc Rivers, right? No one's that inspirational. And JJ has actually brought up Doc in that context. But I think he will be good at sitting down with a guy. He played in the league for 15 years.
He did. It's a long time.
And sitting down and being like, look, I know this isn't your instinct to shoot from here. I know it isn't whatever, but let me show you some tape. This is what happens when you shoot from here. This is what happens when you shoot from here. Try it. Try it for a week. Let's see.
Okay.
Let's see what
Yeah,
changes.
no,
I think that the kind of changes that he will bring in as coach are changes that he can sell on a one-on-one as opposed to the grandiose top of the room.
I hope you're right about that. But I know how you view ex-Dukies, and sometimes they're a little different, and they're a little aloof, and they're a little above it all, right?
No, JJ's my guy now. In full transparency, we got the same broadcasting agent, okay, and Jim Ornstein. I've worked with JJ at ESPN. We were side by side, just like me and Skip, going back and forth about basketball and all sorts of things. So do I think he has an opportunity, a chance? Yes. This is the hottest of hot seats ever. It just is.
Yeah.
Okay, think about it. It's hotter than the Dallas Cowboys. It's hotter than the Dallas Cowboys. It's hotter than the New York Yankees. And here's why. He done had 4 coaches in 6 years. 2 of them went to Western Conference Finals, and 1 dude won a championship.
And
think about it.
Neither of those teams has LeBron in his last couple
And
years.
neither of those teams had LeBron. And the Cowboys, they keep their coaches forever. And the Yankees, same thing with their managers. They ain't going through them like that.
Right.
So this is the hottest of hot seats.
And if we throw into the equation, if they do, in the next couple of nights, draft Bronny, and you've got to juggle the Bronny minutes with the vets, whew, you would talk about a